Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Crush This Monster Truck Podcast. Want to let everyone know yesterday, Christmas, happy holidays. New Year's is next Sunday. Right now, some cool news coming about with me. I'll be heading to Houston, Texas, not for this event, not Florence, South Carolina. Uh, got the nice Raminator going to be heading to the national championship college football game. Um, the week after New Year's, so the same week as Florence. The guys at the Monster Jam, Corey, Bryson, Kurt, Mark, Tim, Nathan, those cats, they will be going to Florence, South Carolina for a 3-show weekend for the Monster Jam Arena Series East Tour. It's pretty cool to see that. Brad recovering from a rollover he had a couple last week with his ankle. He'll be back and running here soon. He's a Canucker, so he can do all that stuff. Once again, and the cool thing is, there's going to be a nice little commercial going on that we're going to have here in the future with some cool monster truck people. But go to our Crush This, a Monster Truck podcast spread shop. Get some cool merch. I know it's already Christmas already happened, but it's cool in the future for birthdays or whatever, social support and stuff like that. And it'd be pretty cool. 6B Apparel, want to thank them. They have crew shirts, hoodies, $100 a pop. Message me or Brad, and we'll help you out here. Also, want to thank Steve Jones in Monster Truck Attitude on Facebook and on YouTube. Go take a look at that. Downhill diecast monster truck racing, kind of a little bit like fantasy football. If you're into fantasy football, NASCAR, baseball, stuff like that. This is kind of it. You put your name in the hat. He picks you. If you win, you get, a truck that he picks, and you just kind of let the downhill go. There's some trash talking, stuff like that. Who cares? It's just fun. Go take a look at that every Thursday night. Thursday Night Thunder, Monster Truck Attitude, downhill monster truck racing. Then also got to show love to our friend Bryce Kenny. He has a book out right now called Gears for Life. Here it is right there. Go take a look at that on Amazon.com. I think it's also audio. So you can have Bryce read you the book to you if you want a bedtime story or something like that. Go ahead. It's cool, very heartwarming. It's awesome. It helps you out in everything you need to do. So pretty much we're going to get ready. This is an awesome interview that we're going to have here for Tuesday night. We're going to do a little bit of the RC world. We always do kind of the episodes throughout the world, and I'm not very good at pronouncing last names, so I'm probably gonna murder it big time. And don't hang me on the cross. I'm sorry, but but hey, we're gonna have the cool guys up in the northeastern part of the United States, the RC Monster Truck Challenge, Kyle and Dan Defalco, and have them interview, tell their story, and try to make the world go around here. But we gotta thank the people that keep us going. And I apologize, guys. I forgot. There we go. J Concepts, High Octane Coffee. Well, I'll let you guys know also, this is the last episode with the old school, our modern day Levy, pretty much our Crush This theme stuff. We have a new one out. Colby Marshall just came out with a new video also. MTRC, go take a look at that. We have the video on all that jazz too. That's coming out. Cool stuff. Once again, we're going to probably have to get more merch whenever that gets done. But once again, guys, go take a look at that. We also want to thank, JB Scale Graphics in this one too, officially licensed by Bigfoot Overkill Obsessed. Also, they do helmets, full-size 1-to-1 RC, not 1-to-1 trucks like your 4400 buggies, stuff like that. Also flags. If you want your flags too, go take a look at that at jbscalegraphics.com, jconcepts.net. Just came out with the 73s. And also, I think the King Flings are now on the tribute type deals. And I want to say thank you to J Concepts too. Another year around the world, being a sponsorship with them. It's also Childress Racing. I'm still running their Childress chassis too. Thank you to them. Cal RC, those guys up in the same area as Dan and Kyle. They supply me with all the cleaning supplies, all the magnetic mats, everything I need to run my RC truck. Make them pretty much just like my real deal, tip top shape and stuff like that. Brass Ring Pro. Mike Befka just gave me money and said I'm sponsored, so I'm okay. So whatever. I'm still waiting for stuff from him. He's awesome. Cool cat to hang out with. Found out he's a kaiju fan, so we went to see Godzilla -1. Cool cat. Loved it. Also, want to thank to Horizon Hobby, Greg and all of them do help us out since we're locally with Raminator and Hall Brothers, so they help us out and get me the parts that I need to get my truck all fixed up and stuff like that. JB Scale Graphics also. Once again, that's a lot of information. Enough time for me for doing that, but we'll get this going and thank our other sponsors throughout the product and go from there. So here we go.
This isn't your typical motorsports podcast. You're listening to Crush This, a monster truck podcast presented by High Octane Coffee and J Concepts. A show where we take you inside the minds of your favorite drivers, past and present, of the monster truck industry. And now, your hosts, Brad Shaw and Dan Chichagash. Buckle in. The show starts now.
Man, it's all awesome. I love that intro all the time. Man, David Lee, old school monster truck guy from the 90s and 2000s. If you had a commercial going on in your living room, he was the man that was telling you what's up. But Dan, Kyle, how you doing, guys? And thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And you didn't butcher our name too bad, so it's Defalco. So you were close. I'll give you that. I've heard a lot worse. But no, what's going on? Dan, Kyle Defalco, coming to you guys out of New York, and happy to be on Crush This. We love your show. You and Brad do, Dan. You got some awesome guests on your show, and it's a real honor to be a part of it. And thanks for having us on.
Yes, thank you, and it's a cool one because we're doing a little bit of the RC side of stuff.
Yep.
And man, let's get the ball rolling here, and let's talk about how you guys got started. You know, obviously, a lot of the people that are in the industry, they sometimes stumble in, but in the RC world, a lot of people are fans. And do you remember the first time you went to a show? We'll start with you, Dan, and then go with Kyle, and talk about what got you guys liking monster trucks in general.
Sure. Yeah. So as my dad tells the story, him and I were sitting on the couch. This is probably the late 80s. I'm 2 or 3 years old. I was born in 86. And we're flipping through the channels and watching TV. And then we go by ESPN and see the monster trucks. And I shout out, go back to the trucks. And it was pretty much downhill from all there. You know, we watched a bunch of TNT Monster Truck Challenge and the old USHRA shows in the 80s on TV. And when I was 3 years old in 1989, Kyle was only 6 months at the time. He was born in January that year. My parents took us down to the Orange County Fair Speedway in Middletown, New York. And it was a stop in the TNT days, a stop on the New York mini tour. There was an untelevised stop. But I mean, you had the everybody who's who, from Dennis Anderson to Rod Litzout, Andy Brass. The whole was like a 16 truck field there. And it's one of like my earliest memories is just seeing Gravedigger parked on the side of the lineup of trucks. And I picked that truck out because it looked so cool. And I was a Dennis Anderson fan from there on out. And Orange County Fair Speedway has been a very special place to us, and they still have shows there to this day. So that's where we started, and just became a fan all the way through the 90s and the Pendera and the TNN era and everything like that. And then that just started our fandom in the sport.
So Kyle, how did you get into it? Because you said you were born in '89, but you could have liked something else. You could have been like, I'm a love NHRA drag racing or soccer. I don't know, but what got you in the mix? Also, was it Dan?
Just following Big Brother, Cheech. Today you get CPS called, John, if you were at a monster truck race at 6 months old. But back then they were carbureted, they weren't as loud and whatnot. And my parents were dying to take Dan to a race, and I was there, so I got brought along, and there I am, a little tiny infant watching monster trucks. Mm-hmm. And it was an incredible event. Like Dan said, it wasn't a televised TNT race, but we actually on our YouTube channel have some highlights from some VHS tape that my dad took. He videotaped the whole event, and it's classic. Andy Brass blowing his motor, Dennis blowing his motor, and Gravedigger, and those guys would be tickled to see some of that footage because I've never seen it anywhere else other than what my dad took on a shoulder camera. So just following Dan's footsteps. What was interesting is being the younger brother, it's just the two of us, Dan and I, we always liked the same thing: NASCAR, monster trucks, music. But, when he was a Dale Earnhardt fan, I had to be a Jeff Gordon fan because I couldn't be a Dale Earnhardt because Dale Earnhardt was Dan's. But Gravedigger was too cool to just be Dan. So we both grew up tremendous Gravedigger fans. Huge respect for Dennis Anderson, the icon, the man. And Orange County Fair Speedway, Bloomsburg, Syracuse, all over the Northeast. We went all over the place to see monster truck shows as kids, and our parents took us, and we couldn't get enough of that stuff, and still can't, be quite honest with you.
I'm kind of in the mix with you guys. I was born in '87. So my first show that I went, I was it's like 1 year old. My mom and dad went on, to the show. Was 1988 Hampton Road Speedway TNT event, the debut of USA 1 number 2.
Oh, wow.
Was my first event that I don't remember. But the first event I remember was a Thunder National event in 1990. So my dad was a Dale Earnhardt fan. I was a Davey Allison fan. I was into the Black 28. And there was a truck that I had very, very, I liked. I didn't know what was the difference between Chevy and Ford and, Ram and all that stuff. I just liked how the truck looked. And it was Rambo. I became a huge Rambo fan. I got a shirt from him, stuff like that. I liked Overkill. On TV, I was always rooting for Bigfoot. But it was crazy because I lived in the heart and soul of Gravedigger country. The old Gravedigger diner was at the strip mall here next to a donut shop my babysitter was actually working at. So when I was little, I saw Gravedigger 2 parked there, or 7, 3, stuff like that. I always saw Gravedigger. I just hated it. I'm sorry. I just always rooted for the on television the Bigfoot truck because I thought it was blue and it was cool. On TV, I didn't like Barefoot. I didn't like Crusher. I didn't like any truck. But then I thought to myself, I think there's like different divisions. So I never really mixed together Rambo and Bigfoot at the same event. I thought Rambo was there. I rooted Rambo. Didn't like Excalibur. Didn't like Overkill. Didn't like Back Stallion. And it was interesting because in the Hampton at the Coliseum there, and they had 2 events. One in November and one in February. February would be your typical Thunder National show. So you would normally see occasionally, all the time you saw Black Stallion, Rambo, Overkill, Excalibur. Then they will throw Nightmare, War Wagon, maybe Barefoot. But in November was I think it was a Torgerson show, but it was kind of like a Gravedigger special event. So Dennis would bring 3 and 7 just in case something breaks. You would go get the other Gravedigger. Don't mind the upstairs people. They just slam it on the stuff all the time. And they would have 8 mediocre trucks. When I say mediocre, 4 of them would be steel body trucks, and then the other 4 would kind of be like what your Buffalo Tremor, or they would have coil springs type 3rd gen trucks, but they weren't kind of like the Super 6, you would say, like, Bigfoot, Gravedigger, Barefoot, stuff like that. And then every 3 years, Gravedigger would face Equalizer, Taurus, Carolina Crusher. So it always rotated. And that was neat before. And then in 96, I moved to Pittsburgh. So I got introduced to that type of series, a Monster Jam. But, it's kind of neat what you guys talked about, because that kind of hits home for me, because I'm kind of into the old school stuff. Because the reason why Skull Bandit is on my wall was actually the very first truck I actually touched. There was a big event in Chesapeake, Virginia. It was the Chesapeake Jubilee. And every year the Virginia Beach Beast would be on display. Normally it's the red one, never the blue one, though, because the blue one was doing some event. What was the red one? Well, that year, the Skull Bandit 2 was parked next to it. My dad put me on the on top of the tire, and I was touching it, and I was brave enough to crawl further along the tire and touch the body of the truck, and I was just like looking around. There's a picture of me just looking around and everything like that, and the driver, I think it was Jim Reese, goes ahead and he says, "I've never seen a kid like that." I'm like looking around, and I had to get off because they're worried about me falling off the tire. But a little bit, sorry guys, I got a little bit of a tangent, but that shows how much I love about this stuff and everything like that. So
yeah, it really speaks to and it's funny how our fandom falls in line. We're talking about that '89 race that we went to. I had a Bigfoot shirt on. I was a Bigfoot kid, and because especially my favorite color was blue, so it was a blue truck, and everything was Bigfoot against the world back then in the '80s. And then just seeing Gravedigger in the parked in the row of trucks, that was it for me. And then Kyle mentioned I'm a Dale Earnhardt fan, so it's like, okay, I learned the difference between Ford and Chevy, so now I'm really a Gravedigger fan. Earnhardt's got a Chevy, Dennis has got a Chevy, and I think those memories really speak to a lot of the diehard fans in the industry. They can always go back to their childhood. It was such a big part of their childhood, and really good memories, and it's something that just always sticks with you. So
that's one thing I miss about today's monster trucks is like how they can shake up between. It's like, oh no, it's Ford versus Chevy. They did a little bit when Blue Thunder was a Ford truck, lined up against Gravedigger and stuff like that. They don't do that no more. It's like, they can still do it today, saying the Crazy Bull against Gravedigger or something like that. But if today's fans just had a little bit of a taste of what that was like in the late 80s and 90s, I think they would have like a different change of heart. But everything comes around, in NASCAR, Kurt Busch retired. He was the last driver to ever race against Dale Earnhardt.
Yep.
That's kind of, you have to stop and think about it. It's like, oh, wow.
It's pretty crazy.
Things have changed, And
yeah.
And going from there. So you go along, and what got you guys interested in starting with the RC stuff? And then this is going to be probably a long topic for you guys. So let's transition to this. How did you guys get into the RC world? And then what was the story behind on starting your own RC league?
Sure. So that story also goes back to when we were very little, probably right after that first '89 show. Kyle and I got started with just Radio Shack trucks. Every Radio Shack truck that came out. I had a truck, a Hot Machine. Kyle had a truck called Wild Runner. They were trucks powered by all AA. And then we just worked up. We get a new Radio Shack truck every year for Christmas. I had the Monster Patrol Radio Shack truck, and we had all these old pillows in our house that we lined up on our downstairs, and we raced side by side with them. And we made our own RC monster truck events, and we called it the RC Monster Truck Challenge. And that's what we did for the longest time for when we were kids, all through growing up. And I always thought how cool it'd be is like if people actually got together and raced RC monster trucks and had events. So like in the early 2000s, around 2001, 2002, I just messed around my computer. I just typed in a search, RC monster truck racing. And then boom, I saw pictures of RC monster truck racing, more specifically the RC MTRA series, which back then there was really two gigs going at the time. There was the NRCTPA out of Ohio and the RCMTRA run by Anthony Luciano out of the Bronx, New York. So it was cool that they were doing it in New York. And then I look at their schedule, and they have a race in Chester, New York, which is literally 10 minutes from my house. So I said, wow, okay, we got to get into this. So at the time, Kyle was starting to move into the hobby grade RCs, and he was really getting into that. He had a Stampede, he had a Team X at the time, and I really didn't have any hobby grade stuff. So I was looking at the rule books. I had no idea what a clodbuster was, or how to get one, or I had no idea the Ripper was the chassis of choice back then. I didn't know how to get that, but I saw that a TXT1 was on there. And so I bought a TXT1, and my dad and I put it together, and I raced a stock TXT1 with 15 turn motors and for my first 2 races. And the second race I ever ran was the 03 World Finals, which I finished second in racing, and I won the freestyle with my Ray Munition truck that year. And then Kyle came in the following year, and it's been Kyle Defalco domination ever since in the Northeast. So fast forward, we raced RCMTRA all the way through about 2008, and then the series came to a halt. Tony at the time, life gets busy. It's really demanding running these RC races. He was doing it by himself, and he came to a point in his life where he had to just take a pause from it. And so for a while, it looked like we weren't going to have any racing in the area. So, Kyle and I got together, and we said, we got to keep this going. The RC industry at the time in 2009 was really starting on the trajectory to where it is now. There's a lot of new people coming into it. There's new manufacturers. So we decided to pick up where the RCMTRA left off, and we created the RC Monster Truck Challenge, and we've been running it ever since in 2009.
Man, I will get back to you guys. I got to thank some people. So, Justin Stories, Making Tracks is a cool little book that he has there. He's going to make a series 2 here soon. Go take a look on Facebook and on Amazon. $10 a pop. Go message Justin Stories. He's back here, right here. Go take a look at his stuff, Making Tracks. Also, MW1 Entertainment, Mark Iron, Mark Warner, monster truck announcer, goes around the country. Go take a look at his stuff too. And I think he's getting ready for his first quarter type deal also. And also Hall Brothers Racing. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast too. They sponsor and help us out with our Canada saying decals, decals so you see on some of the independent monster trucks that tour the country. So thank you again. Woo! Anyway.
Shout out to those guys, especially those Ram boys.
So, one thing that's cool about your guys' league and division is you guys have mastered the announcing side of it. Obviously, if you watch a TK video or any other type of video out there, it's pretty quiet. Obviously you hear the guy going, driver's ready. Yeah. Watch the light. Okay. And you watch the light, and then it's just pretty much you hear engines and everything like that. But when you guys do your videos and do your events, you guys do play-by-play, which is pretty good, pretty awesome, because in a monster truck event, you have the announcers quiet during the racing part of it, but afterwards you still hear them, what a race, what a pass by Tom Mentz and Maximum Destruction. He is your, top qualifier here in Indianapolis and stuff like that. And I feel like it makes it really authentic. It makes it feel like I think some of these people that become a fan, want to have that type of idea of, I'm lining up against, Kyle and, a type of race instead of being in the outside, you're kind of inside. And I feel like you guys have been helping that out.
Yeah, I could talk to that. So RC monster truck racing historically doesn't have a lot of announcing to it, to be honest with you. And so we kind of came up that way, always kind of never announcing it. But, Dan and I were kids of the Army Armstrong days and Scott Douglas and, even Mike Hogwood and,
Joe
loved the, yeah, exactly. We loved the calls. We loved the calls as much as even watching the racing. So when we were kids, we'd playing with Radio Shack trucks on the pillows downstairs in our living room, just like we do it now. Our dad films for us today. He's the cameraman. He's part of the team. He'd film back then, and we'd race. And, we'd take turns calling the action while we were playing. And then when we would freestyle, the other one would announce and make believe it was like a real show. And I don't know who the show was for at the time. It's very funny to watch back, but we just got this practice with announcing. And, Dan took you through the little history there. When we started RC Monster Truck Challenge, in the very beginning, we didn't announce a lot. And as you get more comfortable with yourself and you say, you know what, the announcing is actually cool. People actually like the announcing. We started announcing a little more, got a really nice PA system, and it became one of the signature parts of our events, to be honest with you. Dan and I get super tired of talking after event. It's a lot of yapping and whatnot, but we love doing it. It's fun. It makes the competitors really buy into it. And, I don't goof on any of the other series or the way they run their series. Everyone does their own a little different. Mm-hmm. Ours is really about pure competition, pure fun. And we really enjoy the announcing piece of it. And, that ultimately was why our YouTube channel wound up blowing up. We have a couple videos with a couple million views. It's pretty incredible. And ultimately what really led to Dan and I's opportunity to get involved with Monster Jam and run the LOSI Superstar Challenge events and the LOSI World Finals at the real Monster Jam events is because it's really second nature to Dan and I. It's not even like work anymore. It's a hell of a lot of fun, to be honest with you. And we really got used to doing it.
Yeah, when we started running our World Finals events, they started getting bigger. We had bigger crowds. So we had to have a PA system just to say, okay, you're up, here's what's going on. And then it just morphed into since we had the PA system, we started announcing. But yeah, like Kyle said, especially back then for us, the announcers, Army Armstrong, Scott Douglas Jolo, they made those events come to life. And go back to the Orange County Fair Speedway, the 91 race that we were at. Joe Lowe's, and my dad videotaped that race, and I watch it back all the time too. Joe Lowe's announcing was a masterpiece for that event. And how he spoke and how he presented the event, like that almost stuck out in my mind more than it made the on-track action come to life. So we've just listened to so much of it that we were able to mimic it very easily.
And it's pretty cool also that, I like the tracks that you guys do too. No offense about my home group, but I hate jumping on a turn. When my event that I have at the HBR Classic is very simplistic. I feel like sometimes being simplistic, when I say simplistic, I mean a simple monster truck track can be fun, just as fun as a difficult track. You have your difficult track of an over-under, but it's okay to have like a Tampa 91 where you go over cars and you go around a pole and you have to head on back. It's fun. You get some close racing and also brings together a lot of, maybe you have a really good racer and you have an up and comer. You can bring that out and stuff like that. And I've been watching a lot of your guys' videos, and I do enjoy the track layout that you guys have. You also make, people badmouth straight line racing. And it looks like you guys have some fun with some straight line racing and full tilt boogie. We always say that going on there, but the areas that you go about. Talk about a little bit about what you guys do today for the RC Monster Truck Challenge. I noticed that you guys go to different areas throughout the East Coast. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but what did you guys do as your idea? Obviously, you have the Pro Mod series, the Challenge class, which I compare, not really compare, but it's kind of the two versions of Sport Mod and Challenge type deal. And then you have the retro, like you have right behind you there with Carolina Crusher number 2. Talk a little bit about the RC Monster Truck Challenge and what you guys do for your format, and then a little bit you guys do your scheduling and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let Kyle speak to the format and the scheduling, everything like that. I'll start off with the track. I've always said, and it's true for RC racing, or really even if you're promoting a full scale racing series, everything starts and focuses on your on-track product. If you get your on-track product to a really, really good point, everything else will really fall into place. That's what really got this series a lot of attention, is these our YouTube videos of our events with these elaborate tracks that we run. We run the gamut from, my favorite track is like the Charlotte style crossover track, the bigger like MLNT type tracks, or like what you see from Rich Schaefer's Monster Truck Challenge. You throw in some straight line drag. You mentioned the Tampa 91 track. We actually raced that track on our Challenger and Retro series this year or last year. But yeah, we try to keep a healthy mix of different track styles. I like the big driver's course tracks. I like racing on dirt a heck of a lot better than racing on carpet. I'm also better on dirt than carpet. Depends. I'm not really that good at anything these days anymore, but having exciting tracks, and not only just the design of the track, but the type of obstacles you use, the type of ramps you use, the type of track decorations you use, it all comes together, and you have to build this on-track product that really excites people. So we try to keep a diverse group with tracks going. I like the big stuff, and of course the straight lines are awesome. We always do a straight line every year. And so we're based out of New York, and everybody's like, oh, it's the New York guys, but we hold all of our races in Connecticut and at RC Madness in Enfield, Connecticut. We had done another track, Barnstormers RC in Chester, where we started. We ran a bunch of races there, and we've done a couple venues up and down, New York and Connecticut, some in Massachusetts. But our centralized location for most of our racers that attend our events are close to RC Madness. We always have a good dedicated group to that area. Also a shout out to Chris Marcy at RC Madness and all the support that he gives our series. He's a gracious host. He always loves having us out there. And we've been very fortunate to have a good track relationship with RC Madness, and it's always worked for us. Kyle, you want to talk about the format?
Yeah, definitely. Dan and I on a weekly basis draw track sketches and go back and forth, or take a picture of whatever we're watching on YouTube and say, what about this one? What about this one? No, that track sucks. This track sucks. No. So we're constantly arguing and going back and forth on what the best track is. We put a ton of effort in, though, in all seriousness. And we use a combination of some skateboard ramps, some homemade wooden jumps. Our primary crush car is the Nova body that J Concepts makes. Our title sponsor, J Concepts. We couldn't do any of this without them. But we really have fun going with the best tracks possible. Realistic, scale, making it so that when a real monster truck driver clicks it on YouTube, they say, whoa, that's pretty cool. That looks like the real thing. So that's the goal. Grab the attention of the viewer. We're constantly building new displays and parts of the track to help it stay fresh. Chris Marcy at RC Madness has been a godsend for us. He's really enabled us to have these massive events and have a real monster truck. The Bercy's excavator for the first time this past World Finals, which we'll talk about more shortly, I'm sure. But as far as the format goes, years ago, there were no classes. It was one class. It was just modified clodbuster racing, really. Then you started getting some axial stuff. You had the Tamiya TXT1, and the TXT2 wasn't so much of a hot product. But then the freestyle RC stuff come out, Josh Zimmerman and all those incredible products. And now you got Losi in the game, and all of a sudden there's all these different kinds of vehicles, and it's different than when Dan and I started, and it was clodbuster or nothing. I'm still kind of a pure clodbuster fan just because where we came from, but the need arose that you could do different classes now. And I also think what ultimately really made more classes blow up was when J Concepts came around and Jason Rona started putting out these incredible products. I mean, the 88 Silverado body behind me here, the Golden Years, which is a play on the Goodyear's tires, of course, and the Firestorm tires that play on the Firestone tires. Those products started coming out, and it's like, oh my God, I got to make a Carolina Crusher, one of my other favorite trucks. We got to build a USA 1, got to build Bigfoot 4, got to build Nightlife, Equalizer, Clydesdale. And all of a sudden, there was a reason to have another class. Like, look how cool these things look. Before these bodies and tires came out, retro was really not. It was very hard to get off the ground. We used to run a 4-cell nickel metal hydride battery, and they were too slow to really be interesting. Then LiPo batteries came out, and these products came out behind us, and all of a sudden it was awesome to have retro. And it's blown up to probably the second most popular class behind Pro Modified, which of course is the unlimited Need for Speed. So we run retro. We call it Retro Renegades, as a throwback to the TNT days. We have retro. We have the Challenger class, which Challenger is kind of like splits the difference speed-wise between retro and Pro Mod. And the whole idea with that was not only did we wanted to go beyond Sport Mod, not just run a slower motor, but make them scale. So they require a tubular or cage chassis. Shocks and sway bars must mount to the axle or gear case, just like on a real truck, and kind of take away some of the RC fantasy link mounted stuff, make them more scale. And now we're into the 2.2 class as well, which is the 2.2 inch wheels and tires, essentially that J Concepts builds. And that's kind of like a really wild, fun take on Pro Mod as well. A little smaller tires, a little different for Dan and I to try that this past World Finals. It was the first time we ran it, but it's really popular. The competition was incredible, and those 4 classes will be back at our World Finals. I still think the class to win, if you're the man in RC, is Pro Mod. I love retro. I love winning retro. I love racing hard in retro. But when it comes to Pro Mod, it really is the test of who can control these wildly out of control trucks. And I mean, it's gotten so interesting that we go to the Monster Jam World Finals now and do it in front of 1,000 fans watching it, and they're oohing and on like it's the real thing. It is pretty incredible what it turned out to be. But as far as RC Monster Truck Challenge goes, Dan and I, we're running retro, Challenger, and Pro Mod regular at our events, and there's just new people coming in all the time. It's a really good time to be in our hobby right now.
We'll talk about the World Finals here in a bit, both yours and the World Monster Jam World Finals. But I have a confession to make. I have a retro. Well, what I do is I follow my boss's RC world in one category. So I have Big Boss. I actually have a heavy metal tank that I'm currently working on that I'm only going to use for Colby Marshall's MTRC stuff. So it's running. I have to use 3S to have it run because it's a dual motor Dewey SC setup. But the 3S can run both. Anyway, I have the Big Boss. Obvious. I have Big Boss, Executioner, and Raminator or Hotsy or any of that. But I always have a second group. And the reason why I'm saying this is because my retro is because I hope one day to be a part of your guys' event because I had no problem. My no problem retro was made just for I can bring it out to one of your guys' events.
All right.
Because I feel like it's northeast. I feel like it's TNT country.
Yeah.
It's the 1990 paint scheme. It's not the regular one. It's the Legend Killer one. It's the green one.
The green one. Yep.
Yep. And just seeing the West Lab and Stafford Springs and stuff like that just made me love about TNT was that my second truck, I guess you would say Challenger would be the West Virginia Mountaineer. It just got the new F-150 body that came out from J Concepts. Shout out to J Concepts. And JB Scale did the logo for me for the Mountaineer. It looks exactly like Robbie Graves' Mountaineer that you saw in the TNN Northern Madness days. And then for this year, I kind of used the old. So the Virginia Giant body that you see at the J Concepts website is the Virginia Giant body that I own that I use as a Pro Mod body to make it look like the current Virginia Giant.
I remember seeing that. It looks good too.
Thank you.
Looks really good. Yeah.
But now that truck that body is gonna be retired. Well, not really retired. It's gonna be on the shelf, get pushed back for 2024 because I have my Executioner style Raminator, and there's gonna be another truck that I'm gonna debut at the World Finals, which brings ties to the next topic. The World Finals, like Monster Jam. We're gonna start with the Monster Jam World Finals. You guys, like I met you, Kyler. Oh my gosh, Kyle. I don't think it's Kyle. It's my bad.
Yeah,
Kyle.
Of course.
Met you at Nashville, and in seeing the product itself grow. I mean, when I was working for Monster Jam, I saw it off and on, but I wasn't really connected to everyone. I was just a fan. I was just a technician. I was working on the full-size ones. And when I had finally a break, those 3 or 4 or 5 hour pit party breaks, without BSing with some of the guys, I would come and watch what you guys have over there in Vegas. And then, the cool thing is you mix so many of these different drivers throughout the United States that do their own leagues throughout, like SoCal, NorthCal, Sugar King, your guys is No Limit. Some racers like Dustin over there in Florida, they run there, and you mix it all up to one destination, and then you have all these cool matchups that you never really get a chance to see throughout the year. And thanks to Bari, give shout out to Bari Musauer, the zombie driver, Monster Jam driver, also a legend in the RC solid axle world too. Did a couple of the open house, and I'm gonna screw it up. I think the NTP Ohio group.
But you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and Air Rush and stuff like that. But Kyle, just let us talk about the Monster Jam World Finals, in that atmosphere, and how you just have your own style of gumbo.
Yeah, definitely. So the Monster Jam World Finals and the RC portion of it, years ago, it's funny, real quick, you call Bari, the zombie driver, and he is. But it's funny because for Dan and I have known Bari for I don't know how many years now.
Spider-Man.
20 years, 15, 20, 20.
05, yeah.
And we started out by messaging each other online on the boards back then and saying, hey, I really like your truck. Your truck's cool. They were in the NRC TPA there in Ohio, Air Crushes Run Series now. And we were RCMTRA at the time under Tony Luciano in New York. And those were the two big groups, like Dan said. So we got to know guys like Tim Powers and Tad Goad, and Bari was one of the guys we really just connected with. Say, hey, your Rammunition. He had this Rammunition clodbuster truck that was just killer. And Dan and I looked at that Rammunition. They put a VHS tape you used to be able to buy. We'd buy it, they'd mail it to you, watch their events, and his trucks were just killer. And he liked our trucks. I was big into Black Stallion at the time. That was kind of my truck. And Dan had Gravedigger. And just from saying, hey, your trucks are cool, we developed a really cool friendship online. You meet a lot of nice people in this hobby over the years, and Bari was one of them. And all of a sudden,
the ECD chassis.
Yeah, the ECD chassis. Bari was big into the tweaked racing products back then. Essentially, what Tim Powers had started building his clodbuster chassis, a little short wheelbase chassis, and he went and built the ECD Gravedigger prototype. The R. There's only 3 of those chassis ever built. I should have put it behind me here, and built it for Dan. Dan bought it off him. We have that truck to this day, and it still runs. Man, 2005, almost 20 years ago, that truck's still running and still competitive.
Points this last season.
Yeah. It was good. It's a good truck. You drive it. Dan drives it good. And, so years ago, several years ago, I don't remember what year. I don't know if Dan remembers, but Bari had asked us if we wanted to come out to Vegas and be part of the RC Monster Truck event at the World Finals. And we couldn't believe it. And not remembering what year it was, because I have the worst memory in the world. It just didn't work out for Dan and I at the time to go out there and do that. We hadn't really gotten our feet in our careers and weren't really in the position to do that. And I remember being a little bummed that we weren't going to be racers in the competition. We were asked to run the competition. And at the time, we wanted to just prove that we were the best racers. And, a couple of years went by, and Dan and I really regretted not taking Bari up on that opportunity. And our YouTube channel blew up, and they'd see us announcing, and they'd see us holding these real professional events. And I messaged Bari one day. I said, hey, I missed that opportunity. I regret not taking you up on that opportunity to run that RC race at the World Finals. If it ever comes up again, please keep me in mind. He says, cool. How about this year? I said, yes. So that was Orlando. And that was what, Dan? 2021 was Orlando we did?
Yes.
And that was incredible. The really cool thing about Orlando was we had the real Monster Jam drivers do a race with their RC trucks. And, I'm busy. Dan's busy. We're dedicated. Bari is one dedicated dude, man. If there's anything I could say about him, he wrapped all those bodies, built all those trucks for all those guys, for Adam, for Ryan, for Tyler Meningo was driving, and Cynthia was driving, and Bryce Kenny was driving, and Adam. All those guys had their own real scale versions of low C LMTs, and Bari put them all together, made all the bodies, and I don't know where the guy gets the time, because he's an extremely dedicated dude, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And
for a guy that travels all over the United States and all over the world driving Zombie and Black Panther, and he has somehow have time to go RC racing against his son and all that jazz, man. Give props to him and everything. But also the cool thing is your guys' own RC World Finals. Like you said, you give a shout out to the owner, brought the excavator monster truck, but you're bringing drivers all over the United States. I think Jessica Dial and her boyfriend was at that event. Obviously, Bart and his daughter. People may not know Bart. We have an early episode a couple of years ago. He was the gatekeeper monster truck, the teammate of Tim Tesmer from Ohio. Rest in peace. And the famous Carolina Crusher Hercules fame. But him and his daughter kick butt. What you guys do. You have so many good racers and stuff like that. But your guys' World Finals has grown so much to a point where Jason Rona shows up too, and Tad I think does some of that. I believe he ever done your guys' event? I thought he did.
Says he's coming this year, and I'm going to hold him to it. Tad and
hopefully.
Kyle, the two of you better get out here. This year.
Yeah,
you too.
I'm gonna try to make it also.
Yeah, you too.
But talk about your guys' World Finals too, because it's starting to grow big time also.
Yeah, we spent many years building it. It really goes back to what I was talking about before about on-track product and really making, honing that on-track product and putting together exciting events. And Kyle and I have spent a lot of time, coming up with cool track ideas and reconfiguring the format of the event. And it's just grown into one of the largest and biggest and baddest RC monster truck events you'll find out there on the planet. And we're there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. We really have a really awesome group of racers in our series. Our regulars, they're top notch. They're really, really hard to beat. If you come out and win a points race in our series, you've accomplished something, because the competition is that good. And we're very fortunate to have a lot of people that have come out across the country to the event, and invitations out there to anybody who wants to come. Cheech, we hope you come. We hope you drag that one dude from Illinois with you. The other gravedigger guy, the other one.
The other guy.
He's got to come out too, Mr. Rhodes there, and it's been a lot of years in the making, and it's great to see what it's grown to.
Maybe I'll try to bring Buffco along also.
Hell yeah,
bring that awesome, nice piece, which we may have that little mix here in the future here coming in California here in the next couple months.
Yep.
This is going to be a kind of a class of a lot of casts for this World Finals, which whenever that's released, to let people know that will come about. But also, the door's open for you guys to come to my event. I don't do a league. I just host one event every year, and I try to make it as, kind of not as big as like the Ohio guys or, some of the World Finals, but I just make it enough where, I can bring out anyone that hasn't really tried. I think we have a lot of people in the RC solid axle world that want to try league racing, but they're afraid of it because they're just used to bashing on the trucks. They don't know what's going on. They want to. They think the events are cool, seeing all these different types of trucks, but they're afraid to it. And that's what I'm trying to do with my event. Is I try to mix everything together. You just try to be simple and let them know what the rules are, and then go from there. And then the equalizer is the slick floor. You're racing out a monster truck shop. It's growing big to a point where I may have to move it. A lot of people say no, but then again, a lot of people are saying yeah, because the pits are kind of filled up. I have to move a lot of stuff. I have to bring monster trucks outside, which no one complains about. But all the stuff like that. But once again, I would leave. The door is open to you guys too to come by and race, and at the HBR Classic.
We would love to come to the HBR Classic.
I would love to. I mean, Cheech, the limiting factor in life, and especially in an RC life, is time. I would love to get out to Josh Zimmerman's race out in Wisconsin. He's currently busting my chops right now for not coming out. I was so glad I went to Dan didn't make the trip. He wasn't able to make it, but I went to the last ever solid axle showdown before we lost our dear friend Marlon, who we'll never forget, of course, Marlon Cox. I was so glad I got to go to that event one time, and him and his brother Raph, who run that event down there in Virginia, that was just one of the coolest events ever. And I'm so glad I went there. But man, I wish I went to that event every year they ran it. I'd love to go to the West Coast and out towards you as well. And it just becomes a time game. And running RC Monster Truck Challenge and making it a regular cadence, a point series, a reoccurring event is so good because it gets our brand out there, and it's all about, letting people know that this exists in part of the country, and ultimately led to Dan and I having the opportunities with Bari and Monster Jam. But man, it's a time killer. It does. Building all the ramps, maintaining everything, keeping the trailer going that houses it all, and trying not to drive my wife crazy with what my garage looks like. You wouldn't believe it if I walked you in there right now. But we'd love to. We'll never stop. We'll always find a way to do it. And
sometime one of these years, Cheech, we'll get out there.
Well, the cool thing is I think we always can get together is if we do like a fun run at an indoor place during this time. Because when I'm at home in West Virginia, I live in the Northern Panhandle. I'm only like about 35 minutes outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So Buffalo, I'm about 3 hours. If I take 90, I'm probably a good, 8 hours from your guys' destination in general. For me driving a rig, that's nothing. So, I mean, I can make a day or weekend trip and stuff like that and leave Friday, be home on Sunday type deal. But I think that'd be the closest one. Or you guys do an event where I can bring, I do a car crush or something like that. And hopefully I can stay, a little bit longer on that, And I remember the one time you guys messaged me saying, you're that far away from us. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even think about that. I'm just like there for work, and not knowing I'm in your guys' backyard, just working on what I need to do, it's very interesting. But it's cool how we all get together and how make the world go around, and before we set off here, any social media that people can follow you at?
Yeah, we have our Facebook page, RC Monster Truck Challenge on Facebook. We have an Instagram page. We do have a website, rcmtcny.com. I don't update that as much as I'd like to. So you catch us on Facebook, on Instagram. That's where you're going to find all the latest and greatest. And just keep checking us out. Keep checking out the RC Monster Truck industry. It's a blast. There's a lot of great people involved in it. And it's a good time.
Yeah, I'll put one more piece in there about the World Finals quick, Cheech. This last year, we had 8 different states, racers from 8 states attend, including Florida and California. And that's where Dan and I really kind of pinched ourselves and said, wow, this is no longer 10 or 12 or 14 guys. You get 30, 40 different racers from 8 different states across the country coming to race RC trucks, and a real monster truck showed up. We were able to get Jeff Bursey and his son Gage Bursey's excavator. You're doing something. So it's really turned into something cool. And as soon as people saw this last World Finals, the match just lit the fire, and just people from all over the place said, I'm coming next year. So we had over 200 vehicles this past World Finals. I think we're going to hit 250, 300 this next one. It really is really starting to get going. It's a very exciting time to be in the RC Monster Trucks.
What the saying goes, bet. But man, guys, thank you for being on. Thank you for what you guys have done. And it's always good to have a little bit of RC talk going on.
Absolutely. Cheech, thanks so much for having us. Thanks for everything you do with this podcast. You run an awesome program. Keep it up in the seat. Keep up the hard work. We want to see you out there on the track doing well. And we'll meet up with you at the Monster Jam one of these years and on the RC track.
I'm going to be at the World Finals. So we're already going to be displayed there. So
go team.
I already got asked. I'm going to get out the bag. I'm going to race there. So whatever. But it is what it is. Excited about that opportunity. And once again, folks, talk to always Brad talks about this. Talk to a friend, family. The New Year's coming about. It's actually this weekend. Come about. Go talk to your friends and family. Doesn't hurt to do that. And also my friend Matt Schultz. You guys probably know him too.
Oh yeah.
Donate blood with him. He had a kind of a serious situation a couple of years ago. And go to your Central Blood Bank, United Red Cross, stuff like that to donate blood too. So once again, guys, next week's going to probably be an audio recording episode, and we'll release that because I think I'm going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina. So once again, guys, with Brad, he always says, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up. Peace.